Hello, everyone. My name is Bruno Diniz. I am the co-founder of Spirale Innovation Consulting and also director for F Data in Latin America. It's a pleasure here to be in a panel and talk a little bit about how different organizations are helping the ecosystem, the open finance ecosystem. So we have different players here. It's a brand new world that we're getting into. And there are several different organizations that are dedicated to do this kind of connections that we need here in this system. So I would like to welcome here Nick Cabrera, my friend Nick. He's the director and founder of Open Future World. He runs an awesome event as well. I think that this plurality of different players talking about that, fostering this vibrant ecosystem is always great. And that's what I think most people need. We need information. We need the players to also be showcased. So that's what Nick does. So Nick, could you make a brief introduction about yourself and about your company before we go?
Of course, Bruno. Good to see you again. So yes, Open Future World. We've been around many, many years already. We originally started as a company organizing events in the fintech space about 8 years ago now. But interestingly, when we were organizing a lot of these conferences, we could start to see a convergence towards open banking. So everything from RegTech, KYC, AML, not necessarily blockchain, but that's beginning to be part of this as well. All these other fintech sectors are starting to converge into open banking, and we got involved in open banking almost in its first year in the UK, and we had our first conference, international conference on it back in 2016. So we've been building this community ever since.
Fantastic. And talking specifically about the role that you guys are playing in this field, as you mentioned, since 2016. Doing all the connections, how you guys have been helping the different players grow and their ecosystem as a whole grow, not only in the UK, but as the event is international and as you guys have a strong footprint in different parts of the world, how that thing happens, and also how can the Brazilian community be part of that?
Yeah, the philosophy we have with Open Future World is, first of all, we want to serve a community that needs information that is of value to them. So from the very start of building Open Future World and the involvement of our events, we started to consider that as open banking becomes globalized, more international, more and more countries are beginning to play with open banking, moving into open finance, it's extremely difficult to inform yourself on what's going on, what's happening, who is who in such a way that you can find it in one single place. I mean, you could try and Google it. The problem with that, of course, is you get a whole bunch of adverts, promotions, materials that may not be relevant, and so on. So building this community we wanted to serve them with information that will help them progress in what they're doing, find connections. So one of the first things we did was to create a news service for the community, completely free of charge. Anybody can receive it or view it on our global hub. But the one thing we did, which was different, is we scoured the morning news every day. We've done this every day since last year. And we stripped out what we feel is PR/marketing-led press releases and announcements, stuff that you might look at and think, yeah, okay, that's interesting, but it doesn't educate me in any particular way. So what we did then is we stripped out what we believe to be information or news items or stories that don't really add much to your knowledge of what's happening in the global ecosystem and in the industry. So we then only present what we think are strategically important news items about open banking, open finance around the world. So that was the first thing we did. And out of all of this, we felt then that we wanted to be seen as independent. So these news articles will appear regardless of which company has produced the item. sometimes in any language. It could be in the original language the piece is from. So Portuguese, Spanish, French, Chinese, and so on. So we keep a faithful follow of the news items and feed this through to our audience. And it's what we're trying to do with this is really share the great work that people are doing. So we really identify what we think is great stories, great work, and make that available to our global community in open finance. So, we do a lot of this, and it's a regular occurrence, and it's available on the news feed. The other thing we also did, and I mentioned this about searching for items in open banking and open finance, and sometimes it's difficult to find what you need in this space. So what we also improved is the ability to search our site, because as you can imagine, we now have over a year's worth of news items, a whole bunch of, again, independent articles, case studies, announcements, people who speak at events, and so on. And all of that is now completely searchable in our hub. So not that we're saying we want to be the Google of open banking and open finance, but we'd like people to at least experiment in going to the hub and typing any word or the name of a speaker or an expert or a company who plays in this space. And I'm hoping it will give you a result. So we think it's a really valuable resource for individuals and people who want to really hone in on information specific to this particular community. And anyone can do it. So that's where we feel we can add a lot of value. And one other thing we've been doing recently as well, and we noticed this, is that when people create case studies, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, Bruno, a lot of the case studies are written really in order to present a very positive picture to how a solution, a technology, a principle has applied and maybe worked. But we know, and we've done this through research, that what people really value are case studies that not only go into, obviously, what is the problem and this is how it was solved, but what they really want to know is what challenges did they face while trying to build a solution or provide a service? How did they overcome that challenge? And what is it they would do differently if they were to try again? So we applied that principle to an ebook we launched in March this year. And it's free, again, to anybody to download and view, an ebook of open finance case studies. And it essentially meant that we had about 23 completely original case studies written specifically for us in such a way that really gave you some deep insight into how open finance applications and services evolved, were developed, the challenges they had, and how it led to them being released to the public, hopefully with positive results. So from that perspective, we want to provide as much inspiration, lessons learned, and recommendations. So that's how we're approaching what we want to do. And clearly for companies in Brazil, we would just say, have as much access as you can to the hub and use it as a resource to explore not only what's happening around you, but also what's happening in the UK, in America and Australia, where, as you know, there are different standards, there are different regulatory ideas, and of course, the application of solutions are completely different. So we hope it may help companies in Brazil find inspiration, new ideas, and potential opportunities as well.
Fantastic. And I have to say, both the book that you guys created is awesome, because, you know, you have very, very different, study cases there. It's something that we cannot find, we couldn't find anywhere else. And I believe you guys provided, you put it all together in the same piece of material. Is fantastic. And also the newsletter, I think if you don't have the chance, if you haven't subscribed yet, you're missing. something important here. And as Richard liked to say, is the first thing that he saw in the morning. So once he checks his mailbox, Richard Pryor, F-Data CEO. So that's the point here. And it's for sure, it's one of the most important piece of content that we can find. And that's a very, very nice role that you guys are playing. And talking about specifically some other activities you guys are doing, because I know you guys also have a directory of companies. So could you explain a little bit more of what it is, what is the purpose of this directory, and how it's being used now by the players, the consumers, the users?
Yes. The directory came about because we realized quite early last year as well that if you wanted to find who is who and who is doing what in which part of the world, it was extremely difficult. There is no other listing, let's call it like that, of companies based in a particular country that could tell you what they do. In the UK, you've got the OBIE directory, but it's only for UK countries, and you've got to be a registered / licensed entity. Open Banking Europe have a directory of TPPs and in Europe, but outside of that, we didn't come across anything that we felt could, again, provide a valuable resource of information about activities which could be based on which companies are active in which country, or what type of activity does a company perform, or what type of services does it look to offer. So we created then this, the directory, again, as a completely free resource to enable anybody in this space to easily search and find, for example, let's say I want to find who are the aggregators in Brazil. And you just literally do a search of the country and the theme, the topic, or the service they provide. And there you go, you get a nice listing of it. This listing is being put together not by us pre-populating companies and then asking companies to take ownership. We don't quite see that as a good way of approaching it. So we've been building this directory slowly over time, asking companies to self-populate, free of charge, their own listing. The importance of this is that it will enable us over time to start mapping the global ecosystem. As time will evolve, we will be adding more features to the directory which enable us to identify who are you partnering with. We are considering opportunities where there may be visibility on API information. There may be opportunities, and we're considering as well, of showing even more extensive company data as part of a second layer of information you can see. And also, one thing we did was we partnered with the Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation in Switzerland, because we also believe that, I think it's important, particularly now we're in a very globalized planet, that if you want to find out about a company and who owns it, what its legal entity and structures are, who are the principal shareholders, that should be a much more easily available information source. So what we have done as well is allowed companies to include their LEI number as part of the directory entry. And it just helps add trust and validity to the companies that are listed. So the directory, again, continues to evolve. It's growing. I mean, we must, I think by now, have over 70 countries listed in the directory, over 400 companies already in there. And what we would love, of course, is more companies in Brazil taking the opportunity to create their listing within the directory. And what it does, it just helps them being found, for example, or it could help them find potential partners outside of Brazil, for example. And we're beginning to attract more investors to be listed in the directory, and we see could be using this as a way of sourcing opportunities overseas as well. So the directory will continue to grow, and it is, I think, a useful resource. And the beauty of it, of course, people can update their entries at any time, so it's self-editing. But it is, I think, a great opportunity for all of us to just have more insight into how this explosion of open banking is happening. We can see it grow as the directory grows. So from our perspective, for us, it's a great reflection of how open finance is continuing to evolve.
Yeah, great to know that there are so many different countries being mapped right now, and it's such an early, movement. We see the open finance movement taking over the world, and we can see that's just the beginning of this mapping process, and then this, the creation of this big network that you guys are creating here. I think it's very, very important going forward. Well, Nick, I would like now to check with you guys from Open Future World. You guys have been, pretty deep into all the discussions. You guys fostered the different discussions with your events, with your content. So what are basically the growing trends you're seeing in this open finance world? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been interesting because obviously we've been following this for many years. I mean, I should say, we don't necessarily feel that we're experts. We're not really experts in this. What we like doing is highlighting and sharing expertise and help bring all the voices together in an informed way, and presenting what we believe are the most informed voices and the most interesting content. So, so for example, when we ran the Open Banking World Congress, which you know of a couple of weeks ago, we looked at the analysis of which presentations and topics were the ones that had been viewed the most. And we found that the 4 topics that seem to be really hot at the moment, and this is globally, okay, so it doesn't necessarily just reflect a UK point of view, but this is a global view, is really the emergence of payments, open banking payments. That has been the #1 hot topic from where we sit in terms of interest and inquiries. So we predict that will continue to grow as more markets are liberalizing, the open banking ecosystems are beginning to evolve, particularly in emerging markets where the opportunities are yet to be exploited. Payments, I think, is going to have a massive role to play. So we think payments is particularly hot. The other one that surprised us, well, didn't surprise us, but it was interesting to see it came in second, was this whole interest in embedded finance and embedded insurance. Now, for those of you who may have heard of it but not really appreciate exactly what this is about, the way we tend to describe embedded finance is we call it almost like the integration of financial services within a digital offering. There's got to be a digital offering of a non-financial company. So, classic is a retailer, an online retailer, for example. And what embedded finance provides is financial services when and where they are needed, rather than the customer dealing separately with the financial service provider. So there are a lot of examples on how that can work, but we see it, embedded finance, as a way to allow companies to deliver new value propositions, better customer experience. And examples of this include integration of payments functionality into checkouts and point-of-sale credit offerings within apps and various online platforms. I think Simon Torrance, who's one of the speakers at our Congress, estimates this is worth something like $7 trillion in the medium term. So it's a potential massive opportunity, which is, I think, is why there's so much interest. I think the other topic that also had a lot of interest was this whole platformification, the banking as a platform model. And again, from where we sit, this is all about allowing financial institutions to quite safely expose their services to fintechs and developers in the cloud via a whole range of open APIs. So I think those three topics seem to be the ones that are particularly hot, that generate a lot of interest and a lot of searches on our site. And it's a great way, as you can imagine, for us to look at the search history of our site to give us more insight into what is it that people are looking at. And these are some of the sort of key topics that we come across. The other thing as well, Bruno, that we've noticed, and it's been fascinating to watch, is this whole leapfrogging movement, where, as you know, here in the UK, we've been playing with open banking or developing open banking for 6 years now. And of course, you guys in Brazil and other parts of the world are accelerating beyond where we are in some instances here in the UK. And this seems to be happening in other parts of the world. So it's been fascinating as well to watch how new countries to open banking are effectively managing how the regulatory infrastructure, the legal frameworks are being set up to enable for a quicker adoption of open banking and open finance services. So from that perspective, we see this huge growth area of how Open Future. And actually, one other final point to touch on here, we called ourselves Open Future World and not Open Banking World, because we see a bigger future for the open finance community, because we really want to be seen as a bridge between what we're doing in open finance and moving it into all the other lifestyle ecosystems where data portability needs to happen. So I'm talking about telcos, utilities, health, smart cities, you name it. We want to become that bridge that will enable those industries to look at what's been happening in open finance and open banking, and for them to come to us, essentially, to help build the infrastructure, the regulatory environment, support on standards, technology, because we don't see a point in those industries reinventing the wheel for what we're doing in our sector. So for us, this is the future, and we will be following and continuing to strive to build bridges with all these future industries that are part of our lifestyle ecosystems.
Amazing, and so many great insights here. I think when you talk specifically about leapfrogging, that's something that I've been asked a lot. I was invited by a Canadian institute to deliver a lecture about the leapfrogging process happening in Brazil, about open banking and all of that. And they are just amazed because how we did it. We are doing that so fast. And I believe that now we have already the foundations for this movement, because we've seen that already happened in the UK with all the learnings that they got along the way, in Australia as well. So right now we are in a good point to look at those different experiences and try to incorporate something, not try to reinvent the wheel, which I think is the thing here, and to push this movement forward. So that's fantastic. Another thing, you talking about the embedded finance movement, and I remember reading an article saying that Bain Capital Ventures has said that it's about a 3.6 trillion market in 10 years, and that was a prediction made in 2019, and you said that I believe it was Simon Taylor that said it's going to be something more than 7 trillion, and for sure I really believe this figure needs to be revised, because it's a massive opportunity, and banking is becoming much more something you do despite the fact you're doing that in a financial institution per se or not, and it's unlocking lots of opportunities and possibilities for the consumers. And when we bring this aspect here to Brazil, for example, and to Latin America, it got a very important component of financial inclusion, because some people might be unbanked, but they do shopping of the basic stuff like the grocery and things like that, and sometimes those companies can provide financial services. So that's basically what we're seeing here, and I really believe that's another interesting movement, and it can also for sure benefit from the improving of open bank and open finance as a whole, in different parts of the world.
And I think also just one final point. I mean, just imagine the future though, where consumers have control of their data, and are able then to decide which services that can use their data, and the ability to have your data portable enough across your entire lifestyle ecosystem represents, we think, a game-changing way in which transactions will be happening in the future. So it's a big space to watch.
Fantastic. So Nick, we are almost reaching the end here of the panel. I would like to thank you a lot for taking your time to share with us experiences of Open Future World and everything you guys have been working and learning and teaching to the community. But I would like to get a final words from you before we wrap up here and go on with the Open Banking Week.
Yes. So to all our friends in Brazil and Latin America, we think we've been watching very closely what is going to happen in open finance. We see massive opportunities. There are still countries in South America where the opportunities are yet to evolve, but I think that fills us with more excitement of what can happen. And we're here to support that growth in the market. So everybody, please use our services completely free of charge to keep yourselves updated, and reach out if you need any type of support from us as well, now and in the future.
Fantastic. So Nick, thanks again. And for all you guys that are watching the event, please enjoy Open Banking Week. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Obrigado.